Hi, I'm Judy Turner with Domicile Design, and I'm here to show you how to assemble a Centurion Roman shade headrail system. So what I offer is the headrail system. This is a cordless Roman shade headrail system. Here's a sample, and we're going to be assembling this sample here. This is going to be a visual tutorial that comes along with this headrail system. So if you order it, you get the headrail. You choose your own face fabric and lining fabrics. It's a made-to-measure headrail. Here's the back of it. And this is how it goes up. So it's a cordless lift. It does have cords in the back, but it's a cordless lift system. It's mounted on an aluminum headrail. It has ladder tape that encases the lift cords. And I'm going to show you what you get in the kit. So in the headrail kit, if you specify headrail only, you're going to get the aluminum headrail, the rod, the end caps, the spools, the cradles, the motor, the brackets, the cords, the ladder tape, the brass rings, and this comes with a Velcro, male piece of Velcro on the headrail, and you will also get the female Velcro, which is generally beige. This is not going to be visible when your shade is done. So you'll get it cut to length. We need to know the width and the length of the shade that you're making, and we will cut custom all of your headrail kit pieces. So if you say headrail only, you'll get just the headrail system, but you get the lift cords with it. If you say you want the complete kit, you're going to get a hem stiffener, which is here. This is going to be made to the exact width of your shade, and it's 4 inches in depth. This can be cut down if you want it smaller or narrower for any reason. You're going to get a weight bar. Right now this is just about a 1/2 inch weight bar. This shade has to have a weighted hem, and it needs to have a stiff hem in it for operation. You're also going to get a hand grip. It's a clear hand grip, and it helps keep the weight bar in place. And as you see on the sample set, you just pull down here, and all you need to do to get it to rise is to sort of gently lift. The motor inside takes up all the cord, so it really doesn't take hardly any effort at all. The hand grip will help protect the fabric, and it gives you or your client some place to really grip and pull that down. If you're doing a modified, not a flat Roman, you're doing something like a relaxed Roman, and you're going to do a different type of hem, you can do that, but just keep in mind you're going to have some kind of stiff weight bar at the bottom, and then you're going to have to engineer some way to be able to reach that weight bar and pull it down. But it will not work without a good amount of weight at the bottom and some way to grasp that. So I'm going to show you, this is a shade that, this is a sample size shade. This is made the traditional way you would make a Roman shade, or the way I'd make a Roman shade. So the lining fabric is cut pretty much to the exact size. I have 1.5 inch double folded side hems. I've blind stitched here up the sides. And for the header, there's a couple different ways to do it. This is a Velcro headrail system. I know a lot of workrooms like to mount on a board, but the beauty of this is that you've got brackets that can be mounted either inside mount by screwing up through the top here, and it's very low clearance, or outside mount. You would use these two mounting holes right here to do an outside mount. And the beauty with this system is you can place these brackets wherever you need to place them on the headrail. You don't want to place them directly over where the motor sits, which is about 3 inches in from one side. But you can place this bracket anywhere, and it just simply snaps into place. So it's a very easy installation. And it velcros to the top. That's how it secures. So in this sample, I'll do another video tutorial with some different options for doing the header. But in this one, I've extended the length of my shade. This is the bottom hem, and this extends about 3 inches or so, and then I did a double 1.5 inch turn. This will fold down. What I've done though is I've top stitched down the female Velcro just underneath where my turn is for the top of my shade. So this is going to get turned back and tacked on the sides, and when we do that, you see no visible stitching line from this front edge, and it's a very clean look. It'll also get tacked where the cords are in the cord loop. So that is how the header is, but there are variations on the header, and I'll show that in another video. So what I wanted to start with is assembling this and show you how it assembles. So this, I do a double 4-inch hem. This is my hem stiffener. This is the weight bar. So the weight bar is going to sit basically down here and inside. So what I like to do is put it in like this. This is going to flip back like this. So the weight bar is on the outside of the stiffener. The stiffener's in there, and this double piece of fabric is in there. So my next step is to hand stitch. I've hand stitched the sides, and because of the stiffener in here, I don't take this to my blind stitcher and hem it. I'm just going to hand stitch along these 3 sides, and once I've done that, I'm going to assemble the hand grip. I'm also going to show you, I've already pre-marked the cord placement. The cord placement on this, when you order the kit, you'll get an instruction sheet with some basic directions. And this system has thinner cords, and because it's got a smaller motor, we put more cords in than a traditional shade. So the cord spacing is going to be between 7 and 10 inches maximum. And so a shade this size, this width is about 20 inches. Here I've got 3 cords on this. The first set of cords are going to be about 3.5 inches from either end, and then they're equally spaced in the distance in between there, keeping that 7 to 10 inch spacing. So I've pre-marked here where my spacing needs to go. We did talk about this is a child-safe option, and you need to keep in mind your tacking space this way. No more than 7-8 inches on this dimension here. Because this is just a small hand sample, I've gone with like a 7-inch, just so you get more folds in it for the hand sample. But I believe you can go up to 8 inches, but you'll need to check with the guidelines for making a child-safe shade. Some of the guidelines change periodically, so keep that spacing in mind. So I've pre-marked here. I'm going to now hand stitch these 3 sides like I talked about. I'm going to also attach this chain loop, the cord loop, the cord ladder, and I'm going to tack it where I've got dots. At the bottom, I'm going to include in my tack this brass ring, because that's what's going to anchor our cord when we get to assembling it. It's going to stitch here. I'm also going to tack, see, I would put a tack right here where that dot is. I'm going to put a tack in here. You could just move that down and tack it. It doesn't matter if there's a gap in this, it'll be just fine. And then this, just leave that part loose, and we'll show you when we get to assemble. So I'm going to take a break right now. I'm going to do all this hand stitching, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to assemble the cords. Okay, I'm back, and with the magic of video, I've done all the stitching here. I've hand stitched, and while I was coming across this side here, I attached the tack that I needed at the base, and I attached the ring on all of these points. Continued down. I tacked here where my pencil marks were for my tack placement. So these are all equidistant. This top gets left open like this, and then I went ahead and just whip stitched this top down. That was that little extra that I had on my length. So now I've got, this is my finished length and my finished width of my shade. When you're hand sewing, just make sure none of your threads come to the face. So this is all clean. You only need to go through the lining on this side. So now we're gonna thread. We are gonna thread the ladder tapes, and I'm going to show you one of the tools I use is just a big plastic needle here. This probably came from some kit when I was younger. And you're just, it doesn't really matter how you go through, but you kind of serpentine your way through this ladder tape. So you're just kind of going, I just go in and out all the way. And when you get to the end here, you can't go under because of the tack. So you just skip and go to the next one. Again, you're just gonna skip that and just go up through here. You don't have to go all the way because you know it's gonna end there. So when you get to the end here, I do a knot. You might have a fancy kind of slip knot. I just do a double knot. Another tip that I have when I make my shades and I do any of this hand tacking with thread on these spots, or anytime I do a knot, is I use a quick glue here. It's any kind of white glue will work, but use a dab of glue. Put a dab of glue on all those knots and you'll be happy you did. Something I do when I'm working on my client work. So here's the second one, and you're just going in and out. Make sure if you have a long shade that you're not pulling it through all the way at the bottom, so kind of check that. Keep a little tail on the bottom. Again, we're going to knot off this edge here. Try and be consistent. The cord lengths were all sort of cut the same. So try and be consistent with the amount of take-up that you have in your knot. You can, if you need to, go back and do an adjustment if you don't put the glue on that just yet. You'll see there's a point if you're really off in your knots or in your winding. You can go back and adjust this bottom knot if you have to. Consistent there. I'll knot this one off. A few tools that you're going to want to have on hand while you're making this shade is you're going to want to have a ruler, of course, for your marking and cutting. So you're going to want to have a good pair of scissors. The glue that I showed you is very handy. A big eye needle like that blue one that I have is also extremely handy. I use a nice long needle when I do my hand stitching. My eyes are getting older. I have a big eye needle and I've got a big needle. There's no sense on working with a teeny tiny needle and getting frustrated because you can't thread it. So now we've got it threaded, it's all, or knotted, it's all pretty consistent, so I'm gonna flip it around and we're gonna work from this end. Oh, before I flip it, so I forgot, I'm gonna show you, this is our hand grip. So we're gonna put the hand grip on, and that's gonna keep the weight bar where it needs to go. So when you're putting the weight bar, or the hand grip on, this is kind of my center. My fabric has been marked, so there's a center, the pattern is in the center, so I can sort of see where that is. And you have to be gentle. This is just plastic and it'll snap if you're not careful. You just want to get it over the fat part, and then it'll come back and rest after the weight bar there. So that's it from the front side, and that's it from the back. So I put that on at this point. Now we're going to flip it, and now we can put our headrail together. So the headrail is going to come pre-drilled with the spacing for your cords. We're going to calculate that for you unless you tell us otherwise specifically where you want your cord placement. So in general, because we have a motor that sits on one end or the other, it comes in about 3.5 inches for the first set of cords, and then like I said, it's going to be spaced evenly so that there's no more than 10 inch, usually a 7 to 10 inch space range in between. Okay, so the Velcro side goes to the Velcro side here. You got the male and the female side, but you don't have to worry about Velcroing it just yet. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to thread these cords through the holes. So just put them through the hole, each one. And I like to work with it kind of like this so I can see what's going on. Now, we have, these are our spool cradles and these are our spools. What you need to do first is on the bottom of the spool cradle, kind of goes like, it's going to sit in the headrail like that. It has a little tube that extends on this bottom side. This is the top where the spool fits in. This is the bottom, and in here is a hole, and you just thread the cord up through that hole. Okay, now what we need on this end is a knot, another knot. I do 2 knots on top of each other, and again, you want to be fairly consistent about the amount of cord that you leave hanging. This is going to go into that slot. There's only one slot on the spool, right there. It goes into that slot. We're going to keep the cord forward, and this nub end, there's a nub end, well actually there's 2 nub ends, but this nub end forgot that, let's see. This nub end. So the side without the nub end goes into this cradle, U's on the cradle. So it basically, there's your knot in there. The slotted side goes into that end. The little spindly part goes onto this side. This is coming out through the hole. The cord needs to sort of stay on this forward side. And then you can snap that little door shut. And now it's just going to sit. It's going to sit in here so that this little spot here, this extension where the cord came up, that's going to sit in the hole. So like that. You can pick that out, but just make sure the cord is kind of forward there. All right, so I'm going to show you one more time. I'm going to show you 2 more times, actually. So oh, I always forget that. Okay, make sure you thread first. Thread up through the hole. Knot. If you do it in the wrong order, you'll be reminded. And you'll have to undo it and just go back and redo it. So like that. There's only one way that these things really work. So again, the knot goes into the slot end goes into this opposite end. Make sure the cords are forward. Sometimes you can open that up, snap that down, snap the door shut, and then it just sits so that the hole and this line up in there. So again, take the cord, thread. Sometimes there's a little bit of plastic in here. It might be stuck when they've done the injection molding, so you may have to take a T-pin or something and just open it up. You could still use it, but if you're having a hard time pushing that cord through, that's probably why. So just take a T-pin and open it. So again, there's a double knot. Make sure it goes through your cradle first, so it goes up through there. Here's the spool, knot in this slot end. Slot end is in this back end here. Cords to the front, and you just push it down so that the nub sits into the cradle there. Close the door, and then push that down. Okay, so now you're going to check and make sure on this, all of them, make sure that your cords are not caught up in anything. They should move freely. They're going to be a little loose like this, that's fine, because now we're going to use our rod and we're going to get the motor. So on this rod, that one didn't sit down. Okay, so that's all, they're all sitting where they're supposed to be. So on this rod, there's a little groove here. It's called a V-rod. There's a little groove on this end right here. So this groove, if you see on these, I want to use my little pointer here. If you see on this tube and the spool, there's a little notch in each interior of each spool. So that notch on all of them need to line up with this groove on here. And it's pretty easy. All you do is you start sliding it in. This V-rod is going to be cut to the length that you need it. So there's only one way that this V-rod is going to fit in there, and that's when that groove is lined up, or that piece extension is lined up with this groove. So they all have to line up. And then you just push it down. So let's, okay. So next thing we're doing, I'm gonna get this one. So you just turn the rod until you get it. It's a little tricky sometimes. Like that. And then as you're going, see, you know, you can kind of see that second one is sometimes tough, and then after you've got two on there, it's generally pretty good. Okay, so the next step, I'm going to slide this to the end of my table. Another piece of equipment that you need are these little vice grips, or something that will do the job similar to this. So these are sort of needle nose vice grips, and with a needle nose vice grip, when you clamp down, it'll stay shut until you release it, and you'll see why that's important. So at this point, we're gonna put this on our head rail. We're gonna Velcro it. Don't worry about that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull, this is pulled out just enough. You don't want to pull it out so much that it comes out the spool at the end. You've really only got about ½ an inch in here for working with. So you clamp down on this, and this is what I'm using. Now I'm going to crank it up I'm going to wind up. You're going to see all my cords are being taken up. So the cords are being wound on the spools, and you're going to see the shade is going to fold the way it's going to be working. Just let it come all the way up. We can adjust these folds and train them better. At this point, we just want to get it up sort of as tight as we want it to be. This is going to set the tension for our motors here. Okay, so we've got that. We've got it wound up. I'll take that off. This motor also has a groove. It's got a groove in here. We're going to be putting the rod into the long barrel of the motor, and there's the little V-groove there. And I know where it is. I can feel it here. So I'm going to line it up like that. So now it's sitting on here. Now we got to wind the motor. We're going to do 4 rotations around to get it wound where we want it. So we're just going to count 4 rotations around. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go half. Got to go half more because I got to get it slid in now. I slide it in. So when I slide it, I'm sliding it on. So it's going to come out a little bit on this end, and it's going to come out a little bit out on this end. You don't want it touching here, and your rod should be pretty much centered in here because we have end caps that are going to go on. So now we can test it and see how it works. A little fuzz on it. So without it being mounted on brackets, it's not going to work 100% the way it's supposed to. Once it gets mounted in place, then having this whole thing stabilized, but that's how it is down. You can see maybe might be some adjustment that you need to make here in a cord, and we're going to have to train our folds. The best way to train the folds is to make up the shade and to steam these. That's what I've found, just steam them. And let them sit for a day. So I think the tension here is pretty good. It stays down where we want it to stay down. I think I may need to adjust a cord on this back end. I may need to adjust something here. I may need to adjust that knot a little bit. But I also like to let it kind of relax a little bit, and I don't try not to fuss with it too much initially. So once we have that, that's our headrail. Everything's put together. Now the only thing left to do is I can see I need to adjust something there. Okay, then the only thing left to do is to put on our end caps. So there's a curved side and there's a straight flat side. Another tool that you're going to need is a little tack hammer. If you have a rubber headed mallet, that works too. Some people just force these on by hand, all right, so that one was able to go on pretty well. Sometimes they're tough, and I use a tack hammer. This has a little plastic head on it, so it won't damage as opposed to the metal. The little plastic head is good for that. So the next one, so it's rounded side goes to the front of your shade. The straight side goes to the back of your shade. So then I'll put this one on. you're doing a lot of these, you're not going to want to push them all in, or sometimes they get stuck like that. So be gentle and just give it a tap. Sort of even taps right at the points where they have the little tabs. So that's how you would do it if you had to tap it. Okay, so we've got our end caps on, and at any point we could put our spool covers on place. The spool cover is just clear. I neglected to mention that it comes with a kit because I kind of forgot. Okay, so this goes, it's got the sort of, I don't know, what do you want to call them, like teeth on this side. Here's a little triangle, and this side is flat, but it's definitely like this is a back end. It's got, you can see like that maybe, little cap. So it's going to be, these keys are going in this direction, and this is, you got to slide it in here. I do it this way. There might be another easier way. It's not too difficult. You see me struggling a little, but let's see if I get it lined up. It's got the tube side goes on top. There. So I slide it like this, but then this tab, you need to kind of bump that down so it's under there, and then it snaps in place. Okay, so I'm going to try it again. So this is the orientation. These little keys are going in this direction. Kind of get it back here, so that one went in easy. I just didn't have the right angle the first time. So you get it on, and before I pop this, I get it sort of halfway to 3/4 of the way on, and then I just bump that in and put that on. So this would have definitely been easier to do before our end caps went on. So you would definitely want to do that. Next time around, it still works. May have had to take the end cap off, but it's all plastic and it's pretty pliable. So you just snap those in place. All right. So that is our shade. The only thing left to do at this point would be to mount the brackets. Like I said, they're inside mount, outside mount. You don't want to put it here over where the motor is, so you're going to want to set your bracket maybe in here. 4 inches, 5 inches in from the ends are fine. And they snap in like this, and then they snap in down here. So once this is mounted to your wall, you can either mount straight up for inside mount, or you're going to use these screw holes here for outside mount. And once these are mounted to your wall, it's just this little tab here goes into that groove there, and then the headrail, this will snap into this little prong here. When you hear it snap, it's in there, it's secure, and like I said, when it's bracketed in, it's going to work a lot. It's going to work the way it's supposed to. Sometimes without the bracket being bracketed on, it has a tendency to be a little more springy than you might want it. Okay, so that's that. The other part, if you're wondering about this and here, and also if it's not mounted in brackets, it wants to spring back when it's flat on the table. So what I want to show you now on here, we just leave this like hanging like this. I'm going to cut, leave a solid, and then I cut kind of right there, and I just tuck it into that front headrail. So I kind of, this is where it's coming up. I leave a solid section, cut after the solid section. Just tuck it in. With your white glue, see how that wants to pop up a little? You can just put a little dab of white glue on there, and that'll stay in place. So again, that's kind of the hole. It's coming up through a hole. Keep a solid section. Cut it after. And tuck it in. Just tuck it in there. So you can put a dab of glue here. You can put a dab of glue in that groove. It doesn't really matter. Don't put glue around this little channel, the little tube where your cord comes in, because you'll have a problem. Okay, so that's the back of our shade. That's the front of our shade. That's how it goes up. We're going to train those, but it's looking pretty good. I think I may have a cord adjustment to make, slight cord adjustment. When you get your headrail kit, you'll get an instruction sheet like this, but this is a video tutorial in case you can't follow all the words on it. And the shades will also be stickered with the manufacturer of the headrail system, and it'll have a place for you to write your own name as manufacturer and date. Those things, along with our cord safety, is what makes them compliant with the child safe. So, hope you enjoyed that video. If you have any questions, you can email me or call me, Judy Turner, Delmasil Design. Visit my website, and I'm happy to talk you through this, see what kind of shades you make, and yeah, just have fun with it. Thanks.